Samir never believed in ghosts. For him, both God and demons were human inventions, ideas passed down through superstition. Logic, reason, and adventure were the only things that mattered. His two best friends, Ravi and Naveen, didn't think much differently. Like many young men in their 20s, they were energetic, fun-loving, and passionate about travel. That year, they planned a road trip to Nainital, a cool, scenic hill station nestled in the northern mountains of India. They took their bikes, packed their bags, and hit the road, excited for nature, freedom, and a break from routine life. For the first day and a half, everything was smooth. The sun was kind, the roads were open, and the mountains seemed to welcome them. But on the evening of the second day, something changed. As they rode back to their hotel after a day of sightseeing, they accidentally took a turn and ended up on an isolated stretch known as Bawali Road, about 3 kilometers from the main town. The road was quiet, lined with pine trees, and the wind felt colder than usual. As the sun began to set, they spotted a large, rusted iron gate by the roadside. Curious as ever, Samir hit the brakes. Behind the gate, hidden under layers of mist and silence, lay what looked like an ancient cemetery. The iron gate creaked in the wind, barely standing. There was no one around, no people, no sound, not even a bird. The cemetery behind it was from the British colonial era and had long been abandoned. Ravi remembered reading online that this very graveyard was infamous. Long ago, during the British rule, a massive landslide had struck this area, killing over 150 people who were either buried or crushed alive. Locals said the spirits of those who died still lingered, making this one of the most haunted sites in Nainital. But for Samir and his friends, ghost stories were just that, stories. Rather than feeling fear, they felt excitement. A haunted graveyard was the perfect place to explore and brag about later. Without thinking twice, they parked their bikes and walked in. The moment they crossed the gate, an eerie silence fell over them. The air was heavy. The sun had nearly vanished behind the hills, and long shadows stretched across the cracked tombstones. But the boys were too caught up in their adventure to notice. They began walking around carelessly. Samir laughed loudly. Naveen clicked selfies. Beside graves, and Ravi, though a little hesitant, joined in. They touched broken crosses, leaned on ancient tombs, and joked about the dead. "Guess we found a 5-star hotel for ghosts," Samir chuckled. In their playful arrogance, they began mocking the dead. What they didn't realize was that something had started watching them. After about 30 minutes of fooling around, they decided to leave. They walked back to their bikes, laughed about how boring the graveyard was, and rode toward their hotel. But within a kilometer of driving, something strange began to happen. All 3 of them felt a wave of fatigue hit them, sharp and unnatural. Their muscles ached and their bodies began to tremble. It wasn't just tiredness, it was as if something inside them was being drained. Samir's vision blurred. Ravi's arms went numb. Naveen felt a piercing pain in his chest. Still, they pushed on, barely making it back to the hotel. Once inside their room, things got worse. Their heads began spinning, their foreheads burned with heat, and a strange sense of being followed filled the air. The room felt colder than it should. Samir began to feel like there was someone else in the room with them, something invisible, watching, breathing, moving. Suddenly, Ravi let out a gasp. In the mirror, he saw something horrifying, black, shadowy figures clinging to Samir and Naveen pulling at them like smoke draining a flame. Ravi tried to speak, but the room tilted and he fainted. Moments later, Samir opened his eyes, but he was no longer in the hotel. He was back inside the cemetery. So were Ravi and Naveen. The 3 were trapped inside the graveyard, surrounded by thick fog. They searched desperately for an exit, but every path brought them back to the same spot. While running in panic, Samir's foot hit a cracked tombstone. When he looked down, he froze. The name on the grave was Naveen. Right next to it was another tomb marked Ravi. Trembling, he turned to see a third grave, this one with his own name. His heart pounded. Suddenly, something rolled and hit his foot. When he looked down, his blood ran cold. It was Ravi's severed head, staring at him with lifeless eyes. He stepped back in horror and turned to Naveen, only to find him standing there, eyes black as coal, neck twisted unnaturally to the side, staring at Samir with a demonic grin. Before he could scream, Naveen grabbed Samir by the throat and lifted him into the air. Samir struggled, his vision going dark until someone shook him violently. He opened his eyes with a scream. He was back in the hotel room. Ravi was shaking him awake. Samir sat up, gasping, drenched in sweat. "It was just a dream," he whispered. But when he looked at Ravi and Naveen's faces, he knew something was wrong. Both of them had seen the exact same dream. Every detail matched. Now truly terrified, the three of them ran to the reception. There they met Ajay, a local hotel worker who had grown up in the mountains. When Samir told him about the dream in the cemetery, Ajay's face went pale. "You shouldn't have gone there," he said quietly. "You've disturbed the spirits of that place. Now they're attached to you, they won't leave you alone." AJ took them back to their room, drawing on the ancient mountain rituals he'd learned since childhood. He made the boys sit in a protective circle. He lit incense, closed his eyes, and told them to repeat a sacred mantra after him. "No matter what you see, don't stop chanting," he warned. The boys began reciting the mantra. Minutes passed. The air grew colder. Shadows began to swirl around the room, black, smoke-like figures circling them like vultures. The boys were paralyzed with fear, but they kept chanting. Suddenly, everything stopped. The shadows vanished. The warmth returned. AJ opened his eyes and said, "You're safe now. The spirits have forgiven you." That night, the boys finally slept. And the next morning, they woke up feeling completely normal, as if nothing had happened. No fever, no pain, no exhaustion. The only thing left behind was the memory of that horrifying night. Samir, once a proud non-believer, now understood that some places were not meant to be touched, mocked, or entered. And all three friends promised themselves that no matter how brave they felt, they would never ever step into a graveyard again.